What I will do now is I will read out some excerpts of a couple of letters that he wrote to his sons whilst he was abroad, and his sons they were living. There were just two sons, my father, Harun Bokhari, and his older brother, Mansoor Bokhari. And you can see their pictures over there. Patras Bokhari actually left Pakistan in 1949, effectively, and lived in the rest of his life in New York. So the communication was through letters. In 1949, he was sent by the government of Pakistan to Mexico to study their education system, which was quite renowned for adult literacy. So whilst he was there, my father, who was then 24 years old, got a job and was working and moved to the UK. So this is a letter, and I'll read just bits of it. A letter that a father writes to his 24-year-old son who's going to live in the UK, who's grown up in Lahore and Delhi. His name was Harun, and his pet name was Rooney. So this is now dated 11th of May, 1949. It says, "My dear Rooney, you know all that is important to know and have seen more of life than I had at your age. Nevertheless, parents have an incurable habit of giving good advice, in season and out of it, even when it's not needed. It arises from affection and from protective desires, from anxiety for your welfare, born of love. Let me therefore give way to this incurable habit, and if you find my advice superfluous, and as I sincerely hope you will, I am sure you will, you can ignore it forgivingly. That is to say, without being irritated by it. I will make it as brief as I can. First of all, a very simple piece of advice. Avoid breaking the law. I don't mean resist the temptation of committing a murder or robbing a bank. Your life is not heroic enough to have such monumental desires, as you haven't had the ample opportunities that are provided by having been brought up amongst hoodlums and gangsters. But one is always liable to break laws in little things. One had better avoid that in foreign countries. It is bad manners for a foreigner to enjoy the hospitality of a country and then break a queue or traffic rules or rationing regulations or evade taxes. It is also suicidal, for you will find that if you break a law, the consequences will depress you more in a foreign country away from home than if you broke the same law in Lahore. Secondly, women. This is not a delicate subject. I'm not going to speak about the delicate side of this matter. There is nothing concerning that aspect of which you do not know or which your good senses, good breeding, and decent values will not guide you in. And if you do not have the good values, 1 or 1,000 letters from me will not give them to you. All that I wish to say is that when you meet women, you are bound to show off a little. We all tend to do so, more or less according to the amount of vanity and the amount of desire to appear good and great, in addition to being good or great. But do not try to impress women, or for that matter, anyone, with your money. This is vulgar, and besides, can have disastrous consequences, purely from a worldly point of view. Do not transform what can be a very pleasant experience into a vulgar or expensive hobby. It is like smoking. Smoke if you want to. It is a mildly sinful, mildly expensive, and mildly soothing activity. But there is a difference between smoking and chain smoking, also between smoking and taking drugs like opium. Thirdly, as time goes on, your letters to us will become less and less frequent, and also more and more brief. This is nothing to feel guilty about. It will be a sign not of callousness, but of an expanding horizon and a change in perspective. But two things I will still like you to do. Do write regularly to your mother. However brief the letters, you are more important to her than she is to you. Also, with the years, her need of you will grow greater. Your need of her less. Therefore, be kind and considerate. Her demands will be urgent to her, but not great or difficult to fulfill. Also, keep in touch with Mansoor. Do not let his friendship wither away for want of feeding. If he was only your brother, he could sometime or the other become a nuisance in life. But luckily, he is also a very good friend. And a friend is never, never worth losing. It will be comforting to both of you to retain the bond that you have. Keep your Urdu alive. Ask Mansoor to keep you supplied with an occasional book or magazine. This is important. As for me, write to me just when you feel. Whether it is for money, for advice, for consolation, or for mere fun. Your letters will always be welcome to me, and I don't think I will ever fail to understand your point of view, or to sympathize with you, or to love you. Whatever your joys or your pains may be, and however right or wrong you may be. You and I have been friends for many years. You have been a jolly, fine companion to me, and I do not mind if I reveal my worst weaknesses to you. I am sure you will forgive them, and at the worst will smile at them with understanding and affection. Bless you and wish you the best of luck. Have a good time. I am using good in the Greek sense. The Greeks had a word kalos, which meant three things at once: the great, the good, and the beautiful. For in their great wisdom, they realized that all three were inseparable. With best of love, affectionately, Daddy. August 1955. Now he's based now in New York, and his two sons are in Pakistan. To Harun, copy to Mansoor. Have had the typewriter overhauled for $11, mostly to send a carbon copy to one of you of the letter I sent to the other. Seems the only feasible method of keeping the crossing of wires to the minimum. Good idea, don't you think? There are many things I would like to say to both of you, but it is tiring to have to repeat. For the moment, the typewriter seems to solve this problem. When I get bored with this, I'll think of something else. Political news from Pakistan is, as usual, confusing. Difficult to sort out the plot of a play in which every other character is called Muhammad Ali, and somebody is always being dismissed. Yours most affectionately, Chief. Things haven't changed, have they? In another letter in which he reminisces about his childhood in Peshawar and his family there, he writes, I'm glad you, Harun, have started to learn Pashto. Please don't be slapdash about it. Please do learn its grammar properly. Believe me, most Peshawaris make the same comic mistakes about gender that are supposed to make a Pathan's Urdu so hilariously funny, or an Englishman's Hindustani so superior or idiotic. These were a couple of excerpts, just to show what kind of equation he had with his sons. It was a friendly equation, and both my father and my uncle prided on the fact that they felt that their father was their friend, and that's what we imbibed, and that's what we received from my father and from my uncle. They were my friends.